Network. So we've got some great stuff to get to, Alden, but the headline tonight is George R. R. Martin strikes back. And I'll be honest up top, even striking back at us little whippersnappers for even, not us specifically, he doesn't know who we are. But we put out a clip from last month's show about, hey, we got some theories about the books. And I got some thoughts about George sometimes, but I don't want to lead you into any questions or answers you don't want to give, Alden. But I think we're aligned here that we actually kind of agree with George here.
Yeah, to tease the full answer, this is a pro George episode. It's a pro George channel.
Yes.
And despite his prickliness, older men named George who create vast worlds are multifaceted individuals. They're complex men of a certain age. And yeah, you're right. He doesn't know us personally, although one trip to the right theater or a Mexican restaurant could change that.
We've been within 5 feet of each other at a Comic-Con party.
That's right.
Doesn't know who I am. Nor should he.
That's right. Yeah. David McCall. George R. R. Martin calls out. George R. R. Martin shoots on Casterly.
God, I would love that, David. I would love that, right? If that was the headline on his not a blog, like, let me talk about Casterly Talk. Boom! Controversy. The numbers go up.
He would come after me for being too pro House of the Dragon season 2.
Yes.
I like it too much for his taste. But yes, we're going to talk about his phrased here as a strike back. Some people phrase it as a clap back. Some people phrase it as dunking on the fans. This is the classic fans v. George thing. And then we have a few other questions to get into. Yeah. But you pulled the actual excerpt, correct, from his blog. So Ken will read that off and we'll discuss it.
And I want to be clear. I'm reading this from the Hollywood Reporter. James Hibbard kind of wrote it up. James Hibbard is the kind of Game of Thrones guy over there. This was at the end of May, to be clear, May 29th when the story came out. So since we're doing the show live once a month or so, we're catching up to some of it too, but it's been going around. But yes, let me read this. Posted on the Not a Blog. But this came, we should also give the context of, he announced that he is doing some work, executive producing and just being involved with adult animated feature film adapting the late Howard Waldrop's novella. And Howard was a contemporary and friend and colleague of George R. Martin. So it's a personal project to him, which is part of what we'll be talking about here. But he wrote, I know, some of you will just be pissed off of this, as you are by everything I announce here that is not about Westeros or the Winds of Winter. You've given up on me or the book. I will never finish Winds. If I do, I will never finish A Dream of Spring. If I do, it won't be any good. I ought to get some other writer to pinch hit for me. I'm going to die soon anyway. Oh, George, because I'm so old. I feel sorry for him here and me and us and you. I lost all interest in A Song of Ice and Fire decades ago. I don't give a shit about writing any longer. Just sit around and spend my money. I edit Wildcards books too, but you hate Wildcards. You may hate everything else I've ever written. The Hugo winners, the Hugo losers, A Song of Laya, Dying of the Light, Sand Kings, and Beauty and the Beast, This Tower of Ashes, and The Stone City, Old Mars, and Old Venus, Rogues, Warriors, and Dangerous Women. All the other anthologies I edited with my friend Gardner Dozios. I don't know how to say that name. I apologize. You don't care about any of those. I know. You don't care about anything but Winds of Winter. You've told me so often. He continues, things I do care about, and I care about Westeros and Winds as well. The Starks and Lannisters and Targaryens, Tyrion and Asha, Dany and Daenerys, the dragons and the direwolves. I care about all of them more than you can ever imagine. I wish you all could share my excitement at the prospect of this movie, talking about the Waldrop adaptation. All right, dive in, Alden.
Look in my eyes, what do you see? That's what I heard throughout the entire delivery of that. Yeah. It is very wrestling. We talk about that on Anytime with Ken and Alden, of how U.S. politics is wrestling, and sometimes wrestling is all of culture and popular culture. And this was sort of him grabbing the microphone in a way that's clearly been building. This addressed a lot of stuff. It wasn't just, you're hounding me about this book. It was, what interested me and what really made me empathize for him was that it was him versus the audience in the context of, you're not just hounding me about this, you're disrespecting these other things from his perspective.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are fans that hound about Winds that do not at all mean to put down the other work. That's not their intention. That's not anything. That's just their favorite thing. You've been broadcasting for 20 plus years in total. And at this point, what, like 15, 20 on the internet, 17, 18, something like that. And there are people that come up to you about shows you haven't done in a long time. Do they mean to put down the shows you're doing right now? Not necessarily. But there's a part of you, I know this as your friend, where that comes up, and I'll let you talk about that. But so that was my initial reaction, was like, damn, this is beyond stuff he said before of be patient, I'm sorry, be patient. This was, and you know what? I'm sick of the way you act about this thing.
Right.
And I gotta say, I am on his side a little bit, because the narrative should never be that he's lazy, because the dude is the opposite of lazy.
Right.
Just maybe a little scatterbrained.
Yeah.
I say that with love. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I think we got to be honest and own what things we said in the past and everything too. Of like, yeah, sometimes one of my biggest issues is just, hey man, just write the book. That don't worry about what the show producers are doing. The fallout with Dan and Dave, and sometimes I think he drops explosives into the water that even he doesn't mean to, because he's just being honest about properties that his entire life has been poured into. But where I empathize is where this starts, announcing a project that has to do with a friend of his, right? He didn't just option something. No studio hired him. This is something that has clear personal connection, honoring a friend's past and being honored to work on it. And to have that faced with, yeah, but where's Wids? Like, you're gonna snap, and you deserve it. He deserves the right to grab the microphone and pipe bomb it. Because you know, my case is you touch on is so much smaller, but yeah, having done some shows that were blessed to be watched by a lot of people, and you don't go on those shows anymore, you don't want to go on those shows anymore, you maybe don't even work with those people or even like the people you used to work with, but that is sometimes all I'm remembered for. And without a doubt, I've had some moments of like, fuck off. Fuck off.
Yeah.
And George has had that here, and he's right.
I mean, I've touched on this before on different shows, so apologies if I'm repeating myself for anybody that keeps up with us. But like, first job that I had in radio was at iHeart, and I was working for a host that has decades of experience, and at one time was on a massive morning show. Definitely the biggest morning show Florida's ever had. Also syndicated in like 20-something states and things like that. Yeah. And it was a long, big run, and constantly people were always like giving him the his name was Paul, the other host was Ron had retired, and there was always a like, when's Ron coming back, man, at like every remote broadcast, every bar, every NFL draft party, every Halloween party. When's Ron coming back, man? I miss the old show, dude. I miss hanging out with you guys. And I watched him, even when I didn't agree with him, I empathized, because I watched him do the like, we're still going, man. We're still kicking ass. We're still
doing it.
You know, like, the lineup's different. We got these young guys that are, you know, and it sucks to feel like people are putting you in a box of what's relevant and what's not, because they can't quantify your passion based on how much they like a thing. It's like everybody wants the thing that's going to take off. Of course they do. But like, you know, nobody, it's like, and I feel like this is kind of a constant across all creators. Like, does our love for one aspect of their career necessarily reflect the way they feel about the career? They should have the right to say no. Now, mind you, you know, do I want it to always be years of sitting on it and then snapping? No, for everybody's sake, for his sake too. I don't want George to feel upset. I don't want any old man to feel upset and that they have to defend themselves in rage. That's not what I want for my elders. But even non-old folks, it's like, you know, would Tarantino say that Pulp Fiction is his best movie just because everybody loves Pulp Fiction? He's on the record saying no. He thinks Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his best movie. Does Alanis Morissette think that Jagged Little Pill is her best album just because it's the only one anybody really passionately cares about? We don't know the answer to that. Do I want everybody, again, to explode one day and talk about it in these terms? Not necessarily, but you do see that. Like, it's hard sometimes, especially you and I both like a lot of classic rock bands. Like, you know how it is. Like, you go to a show and they want to play something off the most recent record and everybody kind of checks out. I always feel really bad in those moments.
I do too.
Because it's like everything was new when it started.
Yeah.
Every track that you're waiting for was a new track. And I don't want everybody to just feel like he's only his biggest thing. This is kind of like what Coppola says in Empire of Dreams, where he's like, Star Wars robbed us of the things that George might have made. And it's like, he's not saying that to poo-poo Star Wars. He's saying that because he realized that his friend got put into a box forever. He was never going to come out of that.
Yeah.
So I empathize on that level. The personal stuff is important too. The disrespect. And then I'm sure there's also, it's important to acknowledge, there's also elements of anger that we're not privy to. whether that's alleged feuds or whether that's HBO problems, whether that's, whatever it is, there's definitely fuel. There's people breathing down his neck that were not privy to those conversations. Editors, publishers, I'm sure, lawyers, people that are all waiting for their piece of wins.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no, I agree with that take too. And look, more than anything, I would think he'd probably say, "Yeah, I wish it was finished too." But he's taking his time with it. He has all the right in the world to take his time. I saw a great clip going around. We're not entitled to his work, and I do actually really agree with that. I do have some questions about it. I want it to show up. I get grumpy because I think his words are often used against the show I love, and it just kind of gets churned up in the internet ocean waters there that can be real frustrating. That's why sometimes I will own what I say. Like, I wish I had less comments to George about House of Dragon season 2 or Game of Thrones season 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'd rather just like we all go to our corners on that there and do what we hope you get to do, which is finish this story, because it should be finished by you. There are some realities that we even talked about age and all that kind of stuff, and that's reality. But certainly the way he phrased that's how I reacted to it. It hurt, man. Like, you all think I'm gonna die.
Him bringing that into it is when it was like, oh, this is not just like I'm mad on a creative or business level. This was, you are all intentionally or otherwise condescending me, reminding me of my mortality. Like, how I know you haven't had this particular moment with your parents. They're both in great health, and bless them, and let's let that continue until they're 99. But it's like, there are a lot of old folks that their children have to like take their car keys away and like change their routines and everything. And it sucks. And it's like, it must suck to feel like the whole world is doing that to you. Like, oh, thanks for everything I'm basing my personality and now anger off of. Thanks for the characters I named my kids and my cats after. But have you thought about what happens when you're too fucking old to do it? It's like, whoa, like, my goodness. Like, I thought we were all a family, right? I thought I was George that gave you this happy thing. And you're just like already planning my funeral. Like, that has to amplify the anger tenfold.
Yeah. Absolutely can see that. Yeah, absolutely can see that. So, there's our thoughts on that. I in the end of the day, like, I think he's right. He's always going to be right about this, and looking forward to the books. A lot of, does this change my desire to have the book sooner than later? No, absolutely not. But does it change the way in which I want to make sure I'm discussing it the right way? Yeah, absolutely. I want to make sure that we prop up George. The reason we're here is that this wonderfully weird man in a bizarre little cap and suspenders sat down to write this world. That is why we're here. And I'm always going to keep that in mind.
And I agree. I empathize with him. My final word on it will just be, give him grace, allow him to have this moment. He's right on a lot of levels. Hopefully some people sat back and thought, maybe I should just like be happy with where it is, or be happy. And I'm not saying you need to be satisfied with an incomplete story. I understand.
Oh yeah, no,
totally.
As you want the story to finish.
But but it's like, maybe you could just, maybe it'll inspire somebody to be like, what else has he written? Like, what a concept, right? Like, what, like, maybe there is a way to, sometimes you go to the other thing and you really like it. Like, I was a kid that didn't try Indiana Jones for a long time.
Oh, really?
Because like, oh, that's the other thing.
That's the other Han Solo thing.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So hopefully
wins a winner, and the dream of spring very soon.